Paul Anderson,
Here.
Clara Androla,
Present.
Elise Bonkowski, Charlene Bybee,
Here.
Chris Cobb,
Here.
Andrew Diss, Jeannie Herman, Justin Ivory, Miguel Martinez, Devon Reese, and Dave Solaro.
Kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Just so everyone's on the same page, this is actually, we've started the meeting for the Oversight Panel for School Facilities. This is our every 2-year meeting that we've got to run through. Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Joe Ernst.
Thanks. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself. I appreciate the agenda and where it's going, but I just wanted to stop in and say thank you to all of you for your work on this committee, the oversight that you provide for our district on critical projects and critical areas. It's extremely important to us as an organization that we have the proper oversight and that we are being fiscally responsible with everything that we're doing. And so you all play a very critical role in that. And not having had a chance to say hello to all of you, I just wanted to interject a bit and have a chance to do that. And you know, I think, and I'll also say a very sincere thank you to Adam Searcy. Adam's leadership in our district has been absolutely tremendous. And as you all know, with our facilities modernization project or plan, that's a big part of our community going forward over the next 10 years. And I think the oversight, the guidance, the feedback and direction that can be provided from an independent committee is really going to be helpful as we're moving forward. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to formally introduce myself, let you know that I'm always available if you ever want to reach out. Happy to talk with you more in depth. And again, just say thank you for your contributions to our school district and our community.
Sounds good. Congratulations, by the way. Look forward to it. Any other public comment? Okay. Item 2.01, approval of the minutes of the June 2nd, 2022 meeting on the Oversight Panel. Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.02, discussion and possible action to approve the draft letter to the Nevada Legislative Council Bureau pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute NRS 393.097, outlining the Washoe County School District oversight and school facilities, recommendations for financing the cost of new construction, design, maintenance, and repair of school facilities. I believe we've got the letter in here.
So if I could, you know, this is a obscure requirement of this NRS that we submit this update, this panel, oversight panel for school facilities submits this update to the legislature every other year. So you'll note this letter looks very similar to the one we submitted 2 years ago, with particular note of appreciation for the unprecedented funding increase that was approved by the legislature to our school districts. But also a renewed emphasis on the non-capital funded personnel who maintain and clean our schools that come out of the same funding streams as our teacher salaries and whatnot, and suggestions associated with property tax reform or other ways through which we might continue to improve and increase the funding investments in our schools. But by and large, as you are well aware, because of the local sales tax initiative from WC1, the status of our buildings and grounds repair funding streams are healthier than most. So that's generally the update to this letter. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Just a comment. Commissioner Indirial and I noticed that there are some errors in attachment A as
as to who are on this body and who is representing which ward. I'll point out for the record, and you can correct these. Councilmember Miguel Martinez from the City Council represents Reno Ward 3. I don't believe Alexis Hill is any longer on this body and is represented instead by Commissioner Clara Andriola. Is that correct, Ms. Andriola?
Correct, and it would be District 4 would be the change on that as well.
So just some changes to the attachment. But otherwise, everything seems in order, and I'm happy to move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Send away. Okay, I think we have to now close that meeting. We're going to now move on to the Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting, which is our normal meeting. And we can start with the opening items, roll call.
Chair, do we have closing public comment for the prior meeting?
Oh, we probably do. Do I got to reopen that meeting now? Do we have any, there's no public comment. All right,
Great.
we're just going to
Thank
shine
you
it
so
over.
much.
Appreciate that, though. All right, let's start with roll call for the Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting.
Paul Anderson.
Here?
Clara Andriola.
Present.
Elise Bonkowski. Charlene Bybee. Here. Chris Cobb.
Here.
Andrew Dis. Jeannie Herman. Justin Ivory. Here. Miguel Martinez. Devon Reese.
Here.
And Dave Solero.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Let's move on to 2.01, approval of the minutes of the April 11th, 2024 meeting of the Capital Funding Protection Committee.
I move to approve the minutes of the April 11th meeting as presented.
I got a motion?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, vote all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That one carries. 2.02, recognition of services for long-term limited committee member Dave Solero. This is for presentation. I believe you're,
Yeah, we put this on the agenda to embarrass and publicly recognize Chairman Dave Solero. And he has a work conference and is out of town. He's got one of the most stellar attendance records, but he's genuinely out of town. So we're going to embarrass and honor him in absentia regardless. We bought him a nice trophy for his bookcase. You know, if you serve here more than 2 terms, you get a wooden clock or something. But the school board revised the board policy such that incumbent volunteer committee members can only renew 2 times. So technically, in that sense, he's termed out and unable to renew his term. But we went back through the records and showed that July 29th, 2010, he attended his first meeting of this panel. Literally 14 years he's served this community, and in some regards, I think that should come as no surprise. This doesn't mean, I've said this in my head and it almost sounds like a eulogy or something, but you all know Dave. He's one of the most outstanding public servants and most well-qualified technical experts, public works officials for this panel, and just a humble and generous human. So we really wanted to say that on the record in appreciation of his service. So we'll be working on a replacement, recruiting, as is the process. But that's kind of it. For the elected officials, you guys work that process out for yourselves. But appreciate Dave and wanted to put that on the record. Thanks.
any other discussion? Go ahead.
Adam, I know that this is a recent change for this board for my other safe and healthy schools. For this one, when you say term, is it a 2-year or 4-year term?
So there's, 6 appointed or 6 elected official seats.
Yeah.
5 appointed. They all have, prerequisite qualifications like
Right.
construction industry, gaming industry, things like that. They're all 2-year terms, and I believe the board policy now states that only 2 renewals are allowed. So potentially a 6-year
6 years.
tenure until you have to sit out at least 1 year. So he could technically reapply, but he's got to cool off for a minute.
Okay, so for right now, Dave is the only one termed out.
Yeah. Verbally, Mr. Cobb has agreed his term is set to renew, and he's opting to renew. So we're going to take that to the board here in the next month or so
Okay.
and make that official.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Any other comment on this? I'd like to just take a minute. I know I've said this several times. Dave ran a great meeting. I think, and because I'm a business owner and I'm not an elected official, I can say it. I think this is crap. I understand term limits on somebody that's being elected, but when you're appointing somebody and you've got somebody with the knowledge that Dave has and the history that he has with this committee, I think this is just what I said it is. He should be on this committee. We shouldn't be playing politics on this committee. This is a committee that's just in here to do a job, get it done right, and do the best we can with it. So my 2 cents is, I wish, I would appeal to the trustees to relook at this. So anyway, thank you. With that said, moving on to item 2.03, presentation and discussion of the anticipated cadence and workload for the future meetings on the Capital Funding Protection Committee for the 2024-2025 school year. For presentation and discussion only.
Good afternoon. Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer, and we just want to let you know what you're in for the next year, right? With our facility modernization plan, we're going to be doing a lot of work. And so start off in August, we're going to have some new members, and we're going to have to do elections for that. That'll start off that meeting. And then we have our facility modernization project study allocation for the alternative education, which are Inspire, Turning Point, and Innovation schools, as well as Natchez and Gerlach due to their geographic proximity to Reno and Sparks. Then we have Newstead Elementary that we will hopefully be coming before you for full construction phase funding for that. We'll be ready to bid that after that and hit the ground running and hopefully get out of the ground before winter with those footings and that. We'd like to bring back the BDO audit to get approval on that in August. And at that time, I hope to bring forward maybe more of a scope to you guys for continual audit that we replicate more in a time manner that is more replicated every couple years or so, so that we have a good backing for what we do with that. Then we'll be asking for design phase funding for loader rebuild. We're talking about the loader rebuild on that property behind existing loader. We've done a study, we know it fits, and we'd like to move forward with some design for that. Coming in October, we'll be doing the K-8 study to you guys, bringing it as information and recommendations for that. We're going to start doing some programming for the administrative master planning study in October, so we can get an idea of what space we need, where that should go, those kind of things for that. So we can actually have a new admin building in the time frame that we have it in our CIP already. In December, we'll bring you our typical accountability report that's required to show you our work, how much we've done, how much we've spent, and how much we've completed at that time. Design phase funding also for North Valley's high school modernization and Sparks High School modernization will start, or will be asked for in that December meeting. Those are projects we need to do a little bit of study on, and we need to start those because we're trying to make sure that we stick with the facility modernization timetable for all of those schools that we have within that plan. So we will be bringing back the updates for Matthews modernization. We are actively soliciting for a CMARC contractor currently because you guys approved design phase funding, and we'll be doing that design and bringing it back to you just for information for you guys. February, design phase funding for Maxwell modernization will happen at that time. Maxwell is what we call a sheep shed or a boomer school. It's a little different, and it's going to take a lot of work to get those two up to our ed specs. And so we'll be coming for design phase funding in February. At that time, we'll be bringing also Palmer modernization, so you can see our plans for it. We had a kickoff with the architect, and we will be soliciting for a CMAR contractor for that as well here shortly. But we're actively working on that design, and we'll be bringing back information for you guys. In April, we typically do our CIP. You'll see our 5-year CIP. And with the projects from the facility modernization in that, you'll get to see the next 5 years of it and what we project. Construction phase funding for Matthews and Palmer will be asked for in April, so we can hit the ground running in the summertime to actually start construction when those schools aren't occupied. So we'll be working on that and request for funding at that time. And then we get to June. We'll have our FY26 capital renewal for $50 million, and then we'll be asking for design phase funding for Pine modernization and Sparks Middle School rebuild. And then construction phase funding for our Reed modernization. We're actively working on design with that. We have some good schematics. We have collaborative design working on that, and we will be awarding the CMAR contract at the June 11th meeting for that project. So we're really full force, working hard to make sure all those projects happen. But just want to give you guys an idea of what you'll see. It's going to be a busy year.
Sounds good. Any questions? Go ahead.
So Tammy, I'm curious on the North Valleys High School. I guess I always think of it as being a new high school because I helped work on that bond measure to build it. And time goes fast, but what I don't recall what we've been talking about, what the needs are.
So-
And is it expansion? Is it, I mean,
At North Valleys,
Yeah.
we were looking at an expansion because of the enrollment that's out there. We need to expand it. We have portables out there, and so that was kind of the need for that space. But also bringing it up with the educational specifications as well. But really an expansion to take care of that enrollment.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Is that in line with kind of like what we did at Damani Ranch, basically? Or,
It's similar to Damani Ranch. Damani Ranch, all 3 of those schools were built with certain capacities at that time, but also master planned with additions to go onto them. And shortly after North Valleys and Spanish Springs opened, we put the additions on. We didn't put the addition on right away at Damani, and that's when we put that addition on to take that enrollment growth out there.
any other questions on this? Perfect, thank you. Moving on to item 2.4, 2.04, I guess, presentation discussion of the fiscal year 2025 capital renewal plan for major repairs and capital renewal projects throughout the district in the amount of $50 million.
Good afternoon. My name is David Hatgu. I am the Deputy Chief for Capital Construction and Facility Management Department, working with Adam and Tammy. This will be my first to present in front of a committee since I started working in the Washoe County School District for about a year and a half now. So there we go. All right, so we can go to the next one.
Mr. Chair and Madam Clerk, I just want to make sure the record reflected Ms. Herman's joined us. Okay, thank you so
Oh.
much.
All right, this is background information, a little bit to recover or recall about last year's activity, what we did in this district. We worked for about 100 projects, which is, for the records, a lot of projects, for a little over $200 million worth of projects that we did. A lot of dedicated people in this department behind the scene that are working day and night to make sure that all the projects are designed, planned, estimated, and executed at the end of the day to make sure that our students and our teachers and school staff have a good working and learning environment. Next page, please. I think this is a critical part of this discussion for me, is that how do we actually select projects that meets the budget that's allocated to us. I just want to talk a little bit about it because a lot of people don't know how we do this thing. The highlights is on the board that we do have an assessment department they actually visit the schools or our facilities at least once in about a year and a half or a year and 4 months. And they provide us a documentation with rankings of what each item in each school is the condition, which means that they probably see all boilers or water heaters, and they actually evaluate them, each one of them, to say this boiler is in a good condition or this boiler is going to be going out next year. And they give us that list, and based on those lists, we try to prioritize the projects accordingly. And they're not only giving us the condition of each one of them, they will compare them against each other, against which school is in a better condition and which school are not. And then we put that thing in consideration too. In addition to our assessment team, we also took the same information and we go to our shops, which they do work on those items, and we're trying to understand what do they see. Does our assessment, which they visit the school once in about a year and a half, versus a shop or getting calls every day because this specific item is giving them trouble, or that we need to address that. So we go through those processes and we make sure that we have that information too. And then we got the third item is for our Safety and Healthy School Commission, that they will give us some type of a priority if there are any concerns related to safety of our schools too. So based on those, we come up with a list of prioritization or which schools has to be done. And from there, we go to the next page, which means that we take the $50 million and we prorate them very similar to what we did last year, and we get a portion of that money to go towards ADA, towards asbestos and lead, some type of environmental condition, and then to our shops for our carpentry shop, and some of the departments have a specific request, electronics, energy, landscaping, IT infrastructure, all those, they will get certain number of projects that meets those numbers. And to do this, we got involved from our leadership level to our facility assessment departments, to our project managers, construction managers, and all our shops are involved in all of these discussions. And then we all get together and come up with this list of projects. So there's no favoritism of any sort except based on a need, based on data-driven information is where we come up with these numbers to meet the $50 million budget allocation. If you look at the last page of this data, it will give you a pie chart that what the percentages are for those different type of works that we do. And we try to match them as close as possible to how we did it last year. And this is the result of our research and our recommendation. And the last page is our recommendation that the Capital Funding Protection Committee approved the FY25 Capital Renewal Program in the amount of $15 million to include projects throughout the Washoe County School District, pursuant to the enclosed list of program, projects, and associated costs for each project.
Okay, anybody got any questions on this one? We're not voting on this one yet, just so we're clear. We got another one, and then we'll be voting on both together. So any questions on this one? Go ahead.
So I know one of our goals is to get away from the modular units at the various schools. And I noticed on here under facility utilization district-wide, demolish of mobiles at $100,400. But I was confused by up under carpentry, FCIS repairs, Anderson Elementary, you're going to reside the mobile for $300,000. So I guess I'm a little confused. Why would we be working on them if we're replacing them?
That's a great question. So one of the challenges this year for us is, in the past, we knew that we have to use mobiles and modulars to offset capacities. But we have the facility modernization plan that we are working right this moment, that we are intended to actually eliminate all the mobiles out of our system. But like Schools for Anderson, they're not going to be in the program for a very long period of time. And they are falling apart so that we have to reside and finish them to keep them intact, because anything that's going to take between 5 to 10 years, we got to maintain the safety of the students who are going to be using those mobiles. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did a perfect job. So what you're saying is Anderson's so far out into the future for work that we have to protect what we have, the
Correct.
investment that's already there.
correct.
Okay, got it.
That's how, we have a metrics that whenever there's a request that comes from our department to say, fix this thing, the first thing that we do is we go to the master plan and say, when is the next renovation that we're going to be doing in that school? If it's going to be within about 2 to 3 to 4 years, maybe we will do it differently. But if it's going to be 5 to 10, 11 years, as far as the students and the teachers are in the building, we are responsible to maintain, to make sure that they have a safe environment in those areas. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I'm just curious, why is Anderson that far out? It is one of our older schools, and if the condition of that is dangerous, why are they? I know we did this whole metric on timelines on how we do this whole renewal plan. Why is Anderson so far down the line?
When they did the facility modernization plan, there were many things that went into that calculation for the schedule for it, not just buildings and schools and that enrollment. There were many in the rubric that they scored them. Anderson scored a little bit higher than a STED, for instance, right? Because we're redoing a STED, but Anderson is down on the list a little bit because of where it scored in the facility condition index, most likely, as well as school culture, safety, feelings, and that over there. There's a lot of things that went into the rubric of scoring to determine where it fell within that modernization 15-year timeline, right?
Any other questions? Got one more here?
Under your facility utilization, the department request, who fills that? What departments?
So that comes through departments, specifically could come from our associate chiefs that have principals. It could come from an admin facility with a need for, we used a lot of it last year for creating the boiler space at STED for staff members to have offices. It could come in the form of any other department request, CTE, replacing items within equipment in their CTE programs. They usually come with a form that they come to us with an estimate and request those funds.
So is that kind of like the remodel?
Remodel is a little different because remodel is actually funded by the school site. Okay. This would be funded within the capital renewal plan. So it's a needs that are assessed and maybe aren't known right now either, right? Because things do happen as the school year comes up and there's a need, and that allows us to answer some of those departments' requests if it's an item that's really needed.
And then your pavement, that's based on your PCIs, right? Similar to what you were doing before, pavement condition index.
Yes, they are prioritized with the PCIs, and we follow that prioritization to redo those.
Just a statement, I truly appreciate on your selection. You're doing the ficus, but you're checking back with the shops. It's nice to see that you're actually validating what the assessment is with what's actually being seen in the field by your maintenance teams. Because at the end of the day, they truly give you that validation of what's falling apart and does it match what the assessment says. So I appreciate continue to do that because they know for sure what's really falling apart.
Any other questions? See none? Good job. Let's move on to 2.05, presentation and discussion of the fiscal year 2025 information technology device refresh plan to fund the annual replacement cycle of laptops and iPads for school staff and students in the amount of $4.7 million. This is, once again, just for presentation discussion only. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Gallegos. I'm the Information Technology Director for the school district, and I have with me Don Gotti, one of our associate chiefs. So our presentation today will consist of an overview of our 23-24 device refresh. Don will share on the academic impacts that it's had on our district. We will present an overview of our continued goals regarding the IT refresh, and finally our proposed spending for the 24-25 school year. Last year we received approximately $4.5 million, and we're able to purchase 10,000 student laptops and 1,400 elementary student iPads. We also received 2 FCC grants to help support the purchase of additional devices that combined to a total of $3.7 million and gave us the ability to purchase an additional 10,038 student devices.
So when we look at the academic impacts, first and foremost, we have in our strategic plan about equitable access for all of our students. So the refresh, our department, teaching, learning, and leadership, working alongside IT and with capital projects, looking at how we can provide equitable access to our students. The devices have done that for us. We've been able to have more of our students access iReady. The comfort level for our students on a weekly basis is 30 to 45 minutes in reading and math. Because we've increased our amount of devices through the refresh program, we now are not having to have students share devices or wait for a device to become available or have a device that's not charged and have to wait for that to occur. So we've been able to pretty much get very close to a one-to-one setup in all of our schools, which allows all of our students to access that. The other piece it's allowed us to do is provide blended learning in our classrooms, where it's a combination of face-to-face instruction with online digital tools for students to have a combination of both of those. So the teacher refresh has allowed teachers to plan lessons and support that, and having the devices in students' hands has allowed them to go through the blended learning model to increase their academic opportunities as well. The other piece it's done too for us is, as you're probably aware, we have numerous assessments that we have students take. iReady has 3 diagnostics in fall, winter, spring. We have MAP that's required through the NRS for K through 3 for Read by 3. So that's fall, winter, spring as well. And then we also have SBAC, our state testing that happens. So in the spring, for example, our 3rd graders were tested in iReady, MAP, and SBAC. Having the increased technology, all of those are computer-based assessments. So having that increased technology as well as the refresh to keep devices current and running has really allowed us to shrink down the amount of time testing is occurring in the classrooms or in the schools and allow more time for actual instruction to occur. Because prior to this, we were having to wait for computer labs to become available, or we had a couple of laptop carts that had to be switched. Now multiple classrooms can assess at multiple times, which then clears that window for more opportunities for instruction to occur inside the class setting. It's exciting because this group's approved a lot of opportunities for Promethean boards we put in our classrooms, the refresh program for teachers and students, and being in classrooms and walking through, principal feedback has been very positive, and teachers as well. Now they're not having to worry about those devices getting in students' hands. We're getting them into students' hands, and we're seeing those minutes being obtained through the iReady and through the academic success our students are having. Specific data, I don't have, obviously we just did end of the year diagnostics. That's at future presentations, board meetings and whatnot, but the excitement's there. We go into schools, we're breaking down, we're analyzing the data, we're looking at the impacts it's having for that. And it's on a very good trend in terms of that. So it's exciting to be able to have this opportunity to do this refresh program, and then that connection between IT and the other departments within our district working alongside us of what do our schools need. And this was a critical piece to be able to put devices in our students' hands to make it equitable, which aligns to our strategic plan as well. Equitable access to curriculum for all of our students.
So our device refresh continues to support both teachers and students. Our overall objective is to maintain devices that are 6 years old or newer. In order to sustain this goal, we are replacing 20% of the teacher devices each year. And student device refresh is based on a 20% replacement of 80% of enrollment for laptops and 20% replacement on 30% of enrollment for iPads. So what that means is if you have a school that has 1,000 students, they would receive 20% of 800 or 80%, totaling 160 devices. So moving forward, our estimated spending for 24-25 school year consists of 678 teacher devices at approximately $400,000, 4,960 student laptops at approximately $1.9 million, 1,500 carts at approximately $2.2 million. And this is actually a new piece to the refresh, and one of our main goals over this next year is to really be able to manage our devices better. So we've put out 50,000 devices over the last 5 years without really looking at where we're putting them. So we have been buying carts, schools have been buying carts, but we've gone out and reevaluated the schools and how we're storing those devices, and this became one of the top priorities that we needed to do. A couple other things with that is that it provides us a way to apply security updates to those devices at any time. So when those devices are in those laptop carts, they're on. So we can push software to them, we can push updates to them, and they're being charged at the same time.
And if I could add on to that too, it's also a safety feature when you're looking at a classroom that has power surges or surge protectors, and there's 6 laptops plugged into that and wires are going all over the classroom. We risk the chance of students tripping over wires, which then may pull a device off a desk, which then damages the device, then we're having to replace that too. So it does go hand in hand in terms of the management piece of the device and the care of the devices as well. Plus, it's a spot to where, again, it can be charged back up in a short amount of time and be able to be used by the students as they're working through their day.
So our total FY25 expenditure is approximately $4.7 million. I'd be happy to discuss any aspects of the recommendation in more detail. I believe the proposed action for this will come in the next agenda item.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Any questions? We'll start here with Member Cobb.
So this looks primarily, it's elementary school. What are we doing elementary and high for the refresh of teachers, the CTE, computer classrooms and those?
So this does cover all teachers. It's right under 4,000 teachers that we have. 20% of those will receive new devices. So over 5 years, we'll have replaced all devices for teachers.
And your classrooms that appear to be mostly elementary, not high school?
The distribution of laptops was equitable across K-12, so into the elementaries as well as high schools, middle school and high school as well,
And that includes
based on the percentage.
like your CTE classrooms that have computer labs and that?
It was based on
part of that.
teachers, so all the teachers. Oh, the actual devices?
Yeah, the computer
Okay.
labs you're talking about every 5 years, and some of those higher middle school and stuff that have lab classrooms, I didn't really see that.
Right, so right now, the way because we were able to gain those other 10,000 devices last year, it gave us the opportunity to be able to provide less devices this year and move some of those funds over to carts. So this year, it's looking more like 10% that we're actually going to be supplying to all students. So with 5,000 devices that we'll be putting out those, and those haven't been determined whether they're high school, middle school, or elementary school.
Okay.
So if I under your question, is it about the computer labs that are inside of elementary schools?
Really,
Okay.
middle and high.
Okay,
I know
okay.
there's classrooms, it seems that
Yeah.
those labs, those are pretty old.
Okay. Yeah, the laptop refresh is going K-12, so some of those, and as far as labs being refreshed at the elementary level, a lot of our labs now at elementary are putting iPads,
Yeah.
utilizing iPads in the labs for them, so the middle schools and high schools are doing a similar type of
Okay.
Because the desktops are getting older as they go.
Yes.
So obviously that would be school, that would replace those, but then the laptop refresh is strictly laptops, iPads for K2, and then laptops pretty much for the remaining portion.
Through a few tours, seen those desktops in some of the labs. It's like, are they a part of this? 'Cause
So those desktops in the labs are not part of this refresh.
okay.
We are, as a note though, we are seeing a lot of the schools that are actually using these laptops as a replacement to the labs. So,
Member Andreola.
That was an efficient way to say that most of my questions were answered, because I was truly trying to understand, issuing these and then being able to essentially not have to pay for a lab, because that too becomes obsolete. And so that technology allows that to, essentially you can take your iPad or your laptop essentially, and that becomes part of the lab, which keeps costs down. I can just, so thank you. Great questions. I thought they were great questions. I do have a word of, excitement to hear the presentation, because some of the questions I was going to ask, you mentioned that you'll be bringing back a presentation in terms of the correlation with how those laptops are actually being used in terms of utilization of time, right? Because it's one thing to have a laptop, and then how is that correlating? It's almost like pens and papers. I'm old enough where it was pens and papers. So, but not an abacus. I didn't have an abacus. I had a calculator. But the reality is that not being able to tangibly match how that's actually effectively helping children and youth, it would be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to your comment about bringing that presentation and that data analysis back. That would be great. And then my last question is, what happens to the, as you're turning over these devices approximately 6 years with that 20% replacement rate, where does the old, equipment go? And what's the process with that? And is there any revenue that actually can be obtained with that recyclable program possibly?
right, and I had saw that, I think last year that came up as a topic also. So this year we started looking out and basically went out to a few different companies to get some estimates and on actually being able to get involved in a buyback program. So we have two different, I'm not going to remember the name, but we have two companies right now that we have that are going through the contract process right now. The idea is that we would go ahead and start one of those, maintaining the current one that we have, which is free. We don't get any payback on it, and try to move into that so that we're actually getting some payment back on those devices.
Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, when we first started doing this, we actually had to pay to get rid of them, right? Because some of the devices were so old.
Right, and I think as we've been moving through the years, there's a lot more companies out there that are actually finding some value with them, so, yeah.
Any other questions? Right here?
So, FY24, we enjoyed a $3.7 million grant. Was that a one-time shot that we're not allowed to apply for ever again, or?
Yes, that was one time. So that brought our, like I said, it allowed us that margin to be able to go back and look at and purchasing carts. So we're still going to be above that 80% that we want to make as our goal. But eventually those machines are going to fall back to being over 6 years old and will have to be replaced. So it was a one-time shot to get those carts in.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I just got a few questions. How many carts does the district currently own?
We did an inventory, and it's close to about 1,400 that are in the school in the schools now. We're looking to purchase another 1,500, and we did a kind of a comparison between how many Promethean boards we had installed in every school. and we looked at how many teachers we had. And then we looked at how many devices we had and how many of those devices would fit in a cart to kind of determine the number that we're looking to purchase.
So then is the 1,500 with the 1,400 existing all the carts we need at this current time?
Yeah,
I
that's
get
our-
the fact that it could be different next year, though, but I mean, we feel like this is going to take care of all the carts we need.
Yes.
Okay, then my next question is, how long do the carts last, and how many of the 1,400 are going to need to be replaced next year?
What's that? Yeah, that's a hard one because it's not like a computer.
Ballpark
It doesn't
it.
really have a refresh.
25% of them?
I would guess that a
are
cart
we-
would last 10 years, but I
That-
mean, that's my guess. I mean,
How old are the, I mean, I can't imagine, because we've only been doing this program now for 4 or 5 years, something like, COVID, right? It was COVID that we really started pushing hard on this, so 4 years. So I've got to imagine we don't really have any carts that are older than 4 years old. Would that be correct?
well, the schools have been purchasing carts, since probably before COVID. But when you look at all the carts that we have out there, we didn't really look at the dates, like when they were purchased. We just took a total number. So we went through all the schools, we ran through them and went, how many carts do we have in this school, right? And we did it by, I mean, we know by school how many carts are in every school. So then we did those comparisons to kind of go, this is what we think we're going to need.
And those original carts that we had then
Are still functional.
that were purchased, how were those purchased?
By the schools.
By the schools or during new construction, or both?
Probably both.
Yeah, I would say as prior to this position, I was at Polakitas, so part of the rollout of Polakitas, we received laptop carts in addition to the laptops. Prior to that, if you wanted a laptop cart, it was your general budget or PFA, PTO, PTA, outside resources, grants possibly if they were available for technology, so it was something like that. prior to
So can this committee assume that once we make this one major purchase, that we're going to go back to the old system of the schools pay for the individual ones as we need them, or are we going to be coming back to because the reason I ask is, a big part of our job here is the oversight and to make sure that this money is spent towards capital improvements. The lines start to get a little fuzzy when we're buying, I get the fact we're buying IT assets, but when they're IT assets that, kind of run out, and they're also items that were actually purchased through the general fund prior to today, right? Everything that was purchased for the schools themselves that weren't part of new construction was purchased through the general fund. So now we're basically pulling money out of the capital improvement money to do that, and that's kind of our biggest job here, is to make sure those types of things are looked at, and so I guess what I'm looking for is some sort of reassurance that if we're paying for a one-time large cost because we understand that because grant money allowed for this to happen, we certainly want to reward that if we can. But what I'm trying to avoid is next year's budget being $5.3 million for 5,000 new devices, 700 new devices, and 150 new carts.
Right.
I guess is kind of what my 2 cents is. I'm not sure how the rest of the committee feels, but I certainly feel as though that's our obligation to make sure that we are keeping that in line.
Right, and I wouldn't think that there would be another large purchase of carts. We wouldn't do a refresh of 20% of the carts. A cart is basically a shelf that's powered. There's not a lot of failure points on it, so I'm thinking these are going to last a long time, and as they fail, schools or IT or whoever will have to replace those carts.
Okay, any other questions?
So just to verify, I think where you were going with that is we may not see carts, but there's the idea of continuing a laptop refresh through this committee. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We started this, I want to say it was 4 years ago, where we basically started to, we're an 80% district, right? So we want 80% of the kids to have access to a laptop or a portable device. And then reason we call it refresh, because we're refreshing it every 5
Right.
years, or every year we buy 20% new, get rid of the old 25% or 20% and keep moving. This is, this pretty much, I mean, the way I see this right now, this goes on forever. This is right? And,
Exactly.
And what I'm trying to avoid is when we start doing these things forever, that, you know, it's like, I think it would help to maybe mention that as this started, this was a laptop and personal device for students only on year one. And it was, I think, year 3 that we said, hey, we've got a lot of teachers that need devices up and going. So we started to put teachers' devices in. Prior to that, it was out of the general fund that those items were purchased for. The principal had it was my understanding, the principal at each school had a certain amount of budget. If they were over on their budget, they could pick a couple teachers and get them fresh laptops. And that's kind of how that worked. And then we kind of took that over. And look, I get the fact we're in a technology, right? Things are different now than they were when we were all in school, right? If we had one classroom that had, you know, 15 computers in it, we were pretty lucky. So I get that. I'm always nervous about how we continue to reach out there. Okay, we got that one. Now let's reach out there and grab the other one. And why I'm okay with this at this point is because of the grant money, and I think it needs to be rewarded. But I guess my caveat in it is, well, let's not stop getting that grant money where we can. And then I feel like this committee would probably be a little more apt to continue as we are, I guess. But if the grant money stops and it's just all expected to be out of this fund, I think that's where there's, at least I would probably have some heartburn over that. So.
Yeah, I would expect it to go back to the way it was in the previous year.
Well, I think we talked that one to death. Let's move on to item 2.06. This is presentation, discussion, and possible action to approve the $54,700,000 to the 2023-2024 B Major Project Program for projects throughout the district per attachment A, and to forward the recommendation to a future meeting of the Board of Trustees for approval.
So, Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer. This is our historical tally of all of our major projects and our ask today for our 2023-2024 B major projects for $50 million for our capital renewal and then 4.7 for our IT device refresh. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion when you are.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Coming up on 3.01, so I don't forget, closing public comment.
No public comment?
Public comment, I like that. I have no idea where my next piece of paper is. There we go. I think we got an announcement, or we got an invite today, I think. So our next meeting is August 1st this year, and seeing nothing else, we are adjourned.